was about a year. Um, Within that first year, yeah, I was pretty
Okay.
fortunate. I had a family that was involved, and they wrestled Division I at American University, and then Lehigh University, and they had both been products of the Edge as well. So I think they saw. I have a twin brother, and both of us are pretty good athletes, and I think they saw that we took like kind of a natural, just like a knack to it, and they were like, man, we should probably see if we can push these guys to this club and get them training a little bit more frequently outside of the season. So maybe I had started in what is it, October, November of that first year. And then throughout the season they kind of got plugged. And then, if the hooks were in, which they were, they just pushed us over.
Okay, that's all. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm an old head, so I graduated in '94, same year as Glenn Pritzloff. So I kind of came up right around when Ernie kind of got things rolling, and it was always a very maybe not intimidating, but you're always on a little bit of an edge, but no pun intended. When you saw the guys with the OG, pyramid sweatshirts, you're like, oh, that's an edge train guy.
Yeah, I can literally show you. I wore it every match in college, and his shirt literally fell apart. One of the OG ones from way back in the day, and wore it every competition day. Just kind of a sense of pride. But I hear what you're saying, and it's like wearing the black singlet or something like that. If you're an Iowa guy, it's you got it going for you. In the state of New Jersey, if they know you're an OG guy back in the '90s and early 2000s, you kind of had it going for you.
Yeah, yeah. And I had a little bit of a rivalry with Pat McGrath at 103, and so we had gone back and forth, and I got the better of him the first couple of times we wrestled, but um, I got second in the regions my junior year. So then that time they had super regions, and
Yep.
apparently my guy that I was supposed to wrestle didn't make weight, and then there was this rumor that I was getting the alternate, who came in and kicked my butt, pinned me in a very quick period, and that ended up being one Mr. Dave Esposito. And he was a freshman,
Yep.
I was a junior, and he was an alternate, and yeah, he wrapped me up pretty good. He was definitely edge trained. So
Yeah, it's wild because it's like, I'm pretty close with Dave Espo and Zach and Glenn and Donnie and kind of a little bit after, but there's something really unique about that kind of Edge family where we all fall into the same club after we leave and haven't accomplished, similar things, some more than others. We kind of fall into a different club. So I'm close with Dave, and I know a lot of Dave stories. I'd never heard that. So that's actually pretty interesting.
yeah, next time you see
Unfortunately,
him,
sorry.
tell him Rich Airey was asking about him, said hi.
Will do. Will do. Yeah, I was on a call with him on Monday actually.
Right on, awesome. We're live, right, Jim?
Yes, sir.
All right, so we're going belly to belly with Zack Tanelli, head wrestling coach at Cornell University.
Now,
Coach,
Columbia.
Columbia. I'm sorry, I don't know what I was doing. My bad, Freudian slip. My bad.
Another
There's,
edge
there's
guy.
another Edge guy up there too, so
Yeah,
it's all
yeah,
good.
yeah.
I'll
Jim
give you I'll give you
timestamped
the
that,
pass.
edited it. Oh, I'm all flustered now. Coach, give us your socials, everything where you want people to find you, and then we'll get into it.
Um, yeah, self-admittedly, I'm not the best at self-promoting. I think Instagram is Zack Tanelli. I think Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, is Z Tanelli. But it could be flipped. I don't know. I'm not a good. I need a publicist.
Okay, all right,
Does
and
the wrestling team have
yeah,
socials, stuff like that?
Yeah, sorry. CU Lions WR for both platforms.
All right.
okay, awesome. Hold on one second, Jim. Coach, most important question we have. We're both Jersey guys. You're a Jersey guy. Pork roll or Taylor ham?
Taylor Ham. I don't care though. I don't. To me, it's not as polarizing as other people. I see both sides of it. It says pork roll right on there. But it's Taylor Ham. I don't know. I don't care. It's
Yeah,
delicious.
Yes,
and
it
you can
is.
only get it here, you know,
And
unless if you are Zach. Zach spent a lot of time, obviously, in Stillwater. He would have it shipped out to him. That's how sick he is.
yeah, yeah. There's a fun fact that a lot of the Sprouts markets carry Taylor ham pork roll. So I've been able to find it in Colorado. I found it in Oklahoma, and I even find it down here in South Carolina. And kind of the same
Dang.
sentiment as you is another Edge guy, Dave Santa Maria. He says, "I'll say whatever I can just to get the sandwich."
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's how I mean, I'm with Dave, you know. So I'll just eat it.
Heck yeah.
So Zach, a little bit of a through line. You and I were on Team New Jersey in the junior duels team back in, I believe it was 2003. So been a fan ever since, been following you ever since, following your college wrestling and your coaching. And a little bit that was kind of reminded me of something I actually took from you when I was listening to your podcast with Ryan from Wrestling Changed My Life. You used to have this like Terminator walk that you would do back to the center of the mat when you would go out, out of bounds. And something you said to Ryan was, for a long time you thought you were better than you actually were, even though I always thought you were pretty damn good. But that was something I kind of took from you and was kind of like a confidence thing that I had where I definitely thought I was way better than I actually was. And then, after being on the team with you and watching you wrestle in Fargo, I stole that from you. So I used to be like a hustler back to the center of the mat, but then I would be like, all right, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to make them wait on me. So that was something I took from you and added to my game wrestling.
Yeah. Well, first I'll say I'm sorry that we were on that team together. I can only imagine. I think about those days and who I was in high school, and I'm certainly proud of a lot of things, and I'm not proud of a lot of things also. So, um, 20, 30 years later, I feel like there's a lot of maturing I've done, and I'm proud. I'm probably most proud of that. To get back to your point though, yeah, I mean, I was always like I wrestled hard. And I was always motivated to like to score points and be exciting. I think in a lot of places, and it maybe sounds a little narcissistic, like I became a fan favorite in a lot of ways because I was like I was going to come forward, and whether I was going to win or I was going to lose, I was going to wrestle. And to me, I guess the term now is like a try hard or something like that. Like I never wanted to be a try hard and like run back to the center. But I was always going to exude confidence because I always had confidence, regardless of what the score was. Um, so there's a little bit of like, yeah, man, you could kind of wait for me, I guess. It's arrogance, but it's like I'm certainly not walking slow. I had a pace to me, but I was like, it's good, I'm getting back and we're gonna get after it. But I think there's the other side of it that probably goes less stated is um I'm big on like triggers. I'm big on I don't want to say like compulsiveness, but I do think there's are some habits in high performers, which I always wanted to be. Um, and they had like triggers or resets, right? Things don't go your way. How do you reset yourself? Zach Esposito, if you watched him, I know we've talked about him a little bit. So like, I know certain triggers of other people. Like Arson Fitzai would pull his singlet straps, right? Zach Esposito, when he got in the bottom position, would kind of do like a little bit of a mule kick, like stretching his legs almost before he got set. And for me, that was part of my thing. In that moment of out of bounds, going back to the center, the first thing was like a big inhale, exhale, um, and like gathering myself and resetting and gearing up for the next push type of thing. So I think that's actually probably a little bit more um intentional for what worked for me. And I talk about it with my athletes um everywhere I've been is like, I don't care. I've heard a guy try to squeeze his like literally like squeeze his thumb like as hard as he could to like it was a trigger for this one individual that worked for them that like got them present, right? So, and maybe that's the best word is like it created a sense of presence for me. But without getting into the brains of other people, I would say that probably has a little bit more to do with it and why you see some of them almost, it's cliche, but it's like everyone's OCD. Everyone thinks they're OCD. No one, many people are not OCD. But it's what triggers them to get them back in a psychological state where they can perform at a high level.
I appreciate you sharing that, and it kind of just shows how present in the moment you were when you wrestled and you were focused at the task at hand. A lot of guys are all over the place. I know for a lot of my wrestling career, I was all over the place thinking about 10 million things. Sometimes in matches, I'd always like laugh about like, why am I thinking about that right now? Why aren't I here on the mat? And you apologized before, but I must say that you were actually pretty cool to me. And I thought it was kind of surprising back in the day because I was just this scrub kid from Point Pleasant and you had already been in the state finals. And I was like, wow, Zach's pretty nice to me. That was pretty cool. So I know you apologize, but no need. You were pretty cool to me back in the day. So I appreciate that. So first All-American this year at Columbia, first one since 2013, first on your watch. What does that mean to you?
Yeah.
What does that mean to the program?
Yeah, there's a lot that it means, and there's a lot to unpack in that. Um, I think it's validating in some ways. Like we've had some really good teams, and we've got some really solid guys that have come through this program that I'm really proud of. Um, but I think really what it does is it for the team, it allows them to trust. Like I'm a pretty intense guy, and off the mat, I have a lot of fun. Our team, we have a lot of fun. We create passion and have a great culture. But it's like I'm crazy in a lot of ways, and I think in a lot of good ways, and some better than others, and some worse than others, right? But it's like I think what it does for the team is it kind of demystifies like what it means to be an All-American. They see this guy, they see that all he did was everything that we asked him to do in Lennox, and he's a testament and a byproduct of our training. And if you just believe and you buy in, you will be successful. We're teaching the right things that can get it done at a really high level. And the ironic thing, and Lennox, who was our 74 pounder, who was, the All-American you're referring to, he would say this, and I've said this to him, and I've used it as an example with the team, so I'm not ashamed of saying this. Lennox isn't our best wrestler per se, on the team. Like his wrestling, he's got a lot of things that he does exceptionally well. But the reality is he's tough as nails. He's probably the toughest kid I've ever had the privilege of coaching. But he just like he buys in. Like you've seen All-Americans and national champs come, especially you know, maybe it's becoming a little bit less common, but man, Cal what's his name? Derek Moore was a national champ. He tech followed his guy in the NCAA finals for Cal
Davis.
Davis.
Cal Davis, thank you. How does that happen? That should never happen, quote unquote, should never happen. But it happens because a special athlete has a great bond and trust with a coach. And it's amazing what can happen when you've got a really committed coaching staff, and support system around a kid that truly believes in himself and believes in his environment. So what I think it does for the team is it's just like it allows them to trust kind of my craziness and my, what we're doing, why we're doing certain things, and it's with a reason. And if you do it, we won't just be a solid team. We will have high achieving individuals as well. And then I think personally, it validates a lot of what we've been doing. It's been a long road, and the journey here at Columbia over the past 8 years has not been smooth at times. There's a lot of obstacles here, and some are really obvious, right? With the academic restraints that we have to recruit with, some are less obvious. So it's incredibly validating and fulfilling for me to be able to do that for sure. I've known we had guys that were capable of it, but there's a lot there's a lot that goes into actually getting it done. Um, so I just think it's fulfilling for a lot of different reasons, and that's individually and from the team perspective.
And with that said, Coach, as a high performer like yourself and having goals in your timeline, are you ahead of where you thought you would be? Are you behind? Are you right on track? I know as wrestlers, we always strive for the best and are never satisfied. Are you, are you feeling good where you're at right now? Or you think you're a little behind or a little ahead?
Hey, I always feel good about where I'm at, because that's all I can control is where I'm at. Like what has happened in the past, um, is not something that can be changed. That's the history, and that's the definition of history. Um, I feel really good about where we're at. If to answer your original question, I would be lying if I said I didn't think we would have gotten there a little bit sooner as far as getting a guy on the stand. Again, because I know the caliber and the work of the individuals that we've had and the capacity that they've had to be all Americans. Um, but in turn, I would say the team is actually probably better. I thought it might be a little bit easier being with full transparency to just recruit one or two guys that could get it done, you know? And then the team would kind of figure it out from there. And having an All-American would then allow us to get a better team. We ended up kind of reverse engineering it. And I think, again, that comes to some of those obstacles that we've had to overcome here at this university. So we actually built the really strong culture and the really strong team. And up until probably 2 or 3 years ago, I mean, we definitely had some guys. I inherited 3 guys that were 4-time national qualifiers. That said, on that team, they were the only ones that qualified for nationals in like a 6-year span. So that's not good, right? It says, and that's nothing against the team I inherited by any means. It's just like the levels were very different between those three, like and everyone else. And so I give them a lot of credit because they actually stayed above the fray, and that almost could be harder. But the path we took was getting really solid guys at almost every weight class, and then incrementally getting better and better and better. And I think if I had to go back, I actually probably would choose this way. It's been more fulfilling to see the impact that we've made on the team. And I think sometimes, you guys have been around long enough and you've seen enough teams or, heard enough through the, you know, in the wind about like the kid's a really great wrestler. He's an All-American. He's a national finalist. He's a national champ, whatever, but he's kind of toxic for the team. And I think that actually sets certain teams back more than they are willing to do. So I think for me, it's like I am a man of principle and I live by a code. And regardless of kind of whether you are the highest achiever on our team or maybe the lowest achiever on our team, there's a code that everyone on that's involved in this program that they live by. And that's where their worth lies to me, and I've told Lennox has a special place in my heart and I'll never forget him for a lot of reasons. But maybe least of all is because he was an All-American, and that's like in part of my philosophy and like always what I'm trying to get across to these guys is like, listen, more of them are going to not be All-Americans than those that are, right? So if it's only about winning, then that's a really dangerous way to coach. You're gonna be disappointed pretty quickly. So again, I come back to that point is like, man, I am always trying to instill value in everybody on the team for their output more than their results.
Yeah, I got back into coaching last year, and I told the kids that, my number one goal is to make you better men. If we become better wrestlers along the way, then that's a great thing. I'm not here for wins and losses. My time is not about that. My time is making you and developing you into better human beings. And I appreciate that more and more as I hear more and more coaches talk about that stuff. We talked to Damian Hahn the other night, and his sentiment is the same sort of thing. He said, there's two types of coaches. There's those that care about their record, and then there's those that are caring about the overall development of the individuals and the athletes. So I love hearing that sort of stuff. It means a lot. Another thing that was really impactful that I heard you say, and I don't think I've ever heard a coach say this, and maybe even more so from an Ivy League coach. But you said when you're recruiting, you're looking for athlete students, not student athletes, and that's amazing.
Yeah, I I'm like I'm a different cat, and I sometimes we talked about maybe some of those obstacles. It's like I've almost questioned, like, man, do I fit in the Ivy League? Because I've always assimilated with blue collar. I've always assimilated with hard work, and you put your damn head down, and you do things, and you don't expect much from it, and good things will happen. Um, so I think in that sense, or where I coined that phrase essentially, is like I wanted to create in a white collar environment, which let's be real, the Ivy League is historically and stereotypically, right? It's not necessarily true, but I wanted to create that blue collar mentality and be like, everyone's priding themselves in this league on kind of the similar thing. So how can we, I don't want to say go against the grain, but that's something I've never been afraid to do that. But it's like, I want to attract the blue collar kid in a white collar environment. And that's been our niche. And I think it fits really well with New York City, man. It's a hard city. There's a lot of grit. So it's like an all grit, no quit type of thing that we talk about sometimes too. We're not pretty wrestlers. I don't value social media maybe the way that I should to attract maybe the blue chip 5-star recruit. But you know what? The longer I've been doing it and the longer I've been here, the happier I am coaching the 4-star guy and getting him to surpass the 5-star guy. So it's been a, kind of a change or an evolution since I've been here. But, coming up with that athlete student thing kind of sends a message, and it is pretty impactful or powerful, especially with the parents, because I am not going to say that your kid can't be successful wherever he goes, whether, like, we obviously lose a lot more recruiting battles than we win, right? That's every coach, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 in the country. But just because you're going to be successful doesn't mean you're going to be successful in this program. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong in their process, is they're trying to fit themselves into a program that they might not really fit into. So I'm not saying I'm trying to scare anybody away, but problems arise when there's differences between expectations and reality, right? And if I'm going to go into this and just sell the Ivy League, there's a lot to sell there academically, and the future and the jobs and the internships and all this and that. But the reality is I am hyper competitive, and I want to win very, very badly. So it's like, I want kids where wrestling, that's their identity. The identity of these guys on my team right now, they are wrestlers that just happen to be really, really smart and also want to have the second best education in the country or the 5th best education in the world, and impact their lives and their families and their future in a different way that they see as maybe a little bit more attainable if they chose this path. Again, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, but we've leaned into that, and I'll tell you, we've been a lot happier because of that. But it's intentional. It's intentional because it does perk up some parents. I'll see some parents get real stiff. They sit straight up when I say that, and kind of go into it, because they're like, well, hold on a second. We were wrestling to get to a good school. And that's kind of like, after that, it's all gravy. It's whatever. But this is my livelihood. I mean, I'm this is how I make a living and provide for my kids and my wife. So it's like, I want you to know that I value um, so many different aspects of being a student athlete. But here, you are coming here to wrestle, and then also like 1A and then 1B is you're going to have the academic side of things. And because it's clear up front, these guys that's the identity and the culture of the team. So it's a pretty cool thing once we went through the cycle, right? I've been here 8 years, so we've been through a cycle or a few now. Um, and it's amazing how much more fulfilling it is. Um, but similar to, Damian Hahn, he runs a great program. It's very clear and easy to see that that's what he's about. And I'd agree with what he says, that there are, probably two schools of thought in coaching as far as philosophy.
Yeah, man, I would have had a coach present that mindset to me, because that was I mean, I went to college to run, education was 1B, you know what I mean? But it was always academics, academics, academics. So I wish I had an individual like you that was, yeah, you're here to run, but you're also going to get it done in the classroom. I mean, that might have had a little bit more weight with me. And then I just wrote it down, all grit, no quit. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt at some point.
You got it, man. I love it.
I'll make a donation to the Boosters Club or the RTC with the proceeds.
You accept.
Awesome. Coach, I'm curious, do you find, you touched on the school being in New York City. Do you find that helps your recruiting process? Or do you think because of the wrestling culture and maybe where a lot of wrestling communities come from, that maybe some kids shy away from the cities?
Candidly, I think it probably hurts us. I think, with our regional training center, I think it's become really apparent that it's a lot easier to sell senior level athletes, high level senior level of athletes to come to New York City than it is, 16-year-olds now is kind of who we're talking to, 16, 17-year-olds. I guess depending on how many times they've stayed back. Yeah, it's hard to say. I think for some kids, it's definitely a selling point. I think the demographic of wrestling is a little bit more blue collar, or, probably from more rural upbringings. It probably, or it can hurt us. I don't know. I think it can be an advantage. I think there are very few places where you can do everything. And New York City is one of those. You got the best of every world, not the best of one or the other, music, culture, sports, beach. You can hunt and fish, like you could do whatever you want. And I think that's pretty rare, but it's trying to, when I talk about like selling resident athletes versus, um, collegiate athletes, I think the parents, and deservingly so, are significantly more involved in that decision. It's exciting to the kids. I think that a lot more kids think they can do it, but they're kind of talked out of it. Maybe that's a little bit of cynicism there, but it's like yeah, I don't know. I'm a pretty honest guy. That would be it. I think it can definitely work against us. I think for us, our biggest struggle is getting people to campus. If we get them to campus, then they're like, oh, I get it. We're not in Times Square. There's a campus. There's lawns. There's grass. There's trees. We're surrounded by 3 parks. It's like so whether they come or not, there are very few universities in the country where you can go to and every single person. I have never had someone leave this campus and say that it wasn't better than they expected. And that's pretty, it's pretty rare, honestly. Maybe there's another school or two, but most times it's the flip. It's like people expected something and it didn't deliver. For us, because it's New York City, because, of the external factors outside of our control, they're almost expecting very little. So when they get here, they're like, holy smokes, I get it. it might not be for me, but I see why Lennox, or Aaron chose this school and how they're succeeding. There's a good system. There's a good ecosystem there that cultivates success.
You mentioned that it's more of an appeal, the location for some of the senior level athletes. Having that RTC, maybe you might, because of the location, might not get some of the student athletes you want, but having that RTC and those guys at your hands to work out with, how much of a secret weapon do you feel that is for the kids that you actually get the campus to work out with those guys?
Yeah, I think, listen, we've got, multiple world Olympic medal caliber type of guys training with us currently and that have trained with us previously. It's a huge advantage. I mean, the cross pollination is what we're after. I mean, you're going to learn more from being around guys that are better than you. I want to surround myself with people that are better than me. I've reached out over I've been here 8 years. I have reached out to some high level coaches, and I won't use them by name. And some are more open than others, but like I've tried to set up like lunches or visits to go to campuses and sit down and talk with coaches. I'm a student, I want to get better. I want to surround myself with people that are better than me because I'm not the best. And the second I start thinking I'm better than everybody or anybody, I'm going to start getting passed up. And I think the parallel is there as an athlete as well. So I think that's the goal. What are these guys doing? How are they training? What's their focus like? What, are they sitting there, tying their shoes all practice, or are they like honed in? You know, Ernie Monaco, like he had a funny one. He's like, he talks about Glenn or he talk about Donnie Pritzlaff, and it's like he'd be showing technique or he wouldn't. He'd be talking. He's like a naked lady could open the door, walk through, and walk straight across the mat behind him, and they'd have no idea. And the guy, did you see that girl? And they'd be like, what girl? You know? Um, I want to surround myself with people like that are just like focused, right? Or like if I'm an athlete and a competitor training, I think my guys picking up on that is a big deal of their overall approach. I think the other thing is I use the word and I'm probably starting to use it too frequently, but I think it demystifies like what it means to be a world champ, you know? Frank Chamizo's in the room. He's a world champ. That dude's a barrel of monkeys. I mean, he's fun. He's got energy. You don't have to be serious all the time. I think there was this misconception. I think we've gotten away from it. I think the Penn States of the world have kind of, and Kale speaks about fun and but it's like you had to be serious. This is a job. This is serious. Yeah, I mean, it could be serious. I mean, both things can be true. Like I could have a lot of fun and also think wrestling and take wrestling really seriously. Um, so I think it demystifies like, well, he's a world champ, but he's actually got a really good sense of humor. He's a pretty good guy. He loves his wife. He's got a kid. He's got a baby. He was a little bit late to practice today because he was putting his kid on the bus. I don't like that stuff's really important. And that stuff's really important for me in the program I'm trying to build because there's a lot more to life than wrestling. And although wrestling is like a very, very, very important part of my life, like it is not the most important thing in my life. And that's what I do for a living, and I try to get that across to these guys because I think so much of them, they place such a large emphasis on winning and losing wrestling matches where sure, there's importance there and it's your legacy and everyone wants to leave something behind, but there is a lot more to it than that result that you're going to get.
Thank you for the insight of saying that you're a student of the game and that it is fun and it's something you love. Because back when we were coming up, especially where Rich and I come from, it wasn't cool to love wrestling or to love running and to be a student of the game, but we were nerds and we were all about it. So I love hearing people like yourself talk about it. And you've also said that culture is a big thing for you, creating a good culture and something for the guys to buy in. on. And something that I've seen on social media, that first thing I thought was awesome was your two EIWA champs. You had eaten cereal out of the cups that they won. I thought that was absolutely amazing, and it caught my eye. And then the pin belt that you have that you give guys on the team. Kind of talk about that concept of, having that lighthearted approach to things, but also getting the job done.
Yeah, I mean, we're all there to get the job done. I don't know the last time, like Rich, you said you just got into coaching. How many of your guys lose a match intentionally? Like
None.
no one's going out there to lose. My guys aren't going out there to lose. They're going out there to win. I'm going out there to win. Um, so I think we've just tried to make light of the situation and like, yeah, I get it. There's more like it's more the effort and like, hey, let's go, let's make corrections. And I think that's where like if you follow our season, our program, like, yeah, we have, Iowa, Michigan, Ohio State, we got Oklahoma State last year. Like we're so much process oriented and thinking about the macro than the micro. And I think we try to create things, we got a gas can, we give a gas man award. And we're trying to scuff it all up and get it all dirty. And uh, for the guy that lights the fire, so we got that, we got the pin belt. That the eating out of the bowls, that's the PG version. I like that that's what they shared on social media as opposed to maybe some other things. But we listen, I I think I'm just like I don't forget what it was like. I think sometimes in coaching, people get so separated from what it was like to be a student athlete and like how caught myself there, how hard it is, man. This is hard. What's like you got to enjoy doing really, really hard things. If it's only you're enjoying winning matches, you're at this level, you're gonna quit pretty quick. Like you're not gonna make it. And that's really where you see so many top tier 5-star blue chip recruits that like don't pan out. Um, they don't embrace that it is a grind, that it's like it's the really hard things that you're gonna do that will result in it. And to start again at the bottom of the pyramid, like they don't remember what it was like when they were in sixth grade or third grade, unless if they were the phenom all the way through. But those guys are typically, not typically, but they have, occasionally will break along the way also. And when people catch up, everyone hits that bump and it's like, are you going to run through it? And you can only run through it if you're intrinsically motivated to be better than who you are. And that is a process of being a learner and being a student as opposed to the alternative. So um I think with that said, it's like I am intense. I have a reputation for those that don't know me about being really intense. And I think for all those that do know me, yeah, they'll confirm 100% I'm intense. They will also confirm that I am never serious. I am constantly sarcastic and checking them and you know always trying to keep up with what they're saying, the stupid slang or whatever it is, and using it incorrectly so that they can mock me. Like that's the stuff I remember, and that's how you, in my opinion, you create some more camaraderie. Um, so silly things like a pin belt or a gas can or how we're going to utilize these bowls that really mean nothing. It means nothing that you have a bowl or an all-American plaque or not. It's like it's just bigger picture stuff. So we just try to make light of it, man. That's it. That's always what I've been about. And I have a lot of fun. I'm a spirited guy, and I want spirited guys with energy and character. And when we're talking about recruiting previously, I recruit kids that have personality because I have a lot of personality. And again, I just have more fun doing it. If we're gonna lose, you know, I'd rather lose with those guys. And it's been again the word that has come back to me from March, from the NCAA tournament is fulfillment and fulfilling. And it's just far more fulfilling to do it with the right kids. And that we have.
Amen. Coach, you mentioned your intensity. I'm curious, is that something that has always been in your DNA, maybe having a twin brother, or is that something that was maybe developed and foster along the way, coming up early at the edge. And then you also, in the beginning, kind of apologized maybe for some of your behaviors or actions as a teenager. And now you've said that you like to have fun and you're fun with things. So was there a turning point in your career where that like switch turned from maybe some of that intensity to having the fun?
My family, I got a big family. I'm a big Italian family from New Jersey. And it's like my family was always divided from when we'd go down the shore to the beach, and like there was team intense and team mellow fellows, we called them. And I was always on team intense, always. My brother, my twin brother, who's my best friend, he was always a mellow fellow. And we were raised exactly the same. I think a lot of it is in my DNA because my brother and I were raised identically, and he just, he didn't have that. Not that, I mean, he's competitive and he's intense in certain ways, but I wouldn't say that's his core, like one of his core traits is intensity. Where I would say it probably was a little bit more of mine. I think it was nurtured and fostered by a guy like Ernie for sure. But honed in, and the recognition that you could be a hard dude and still be light in a lot of ways. Ernie is one of the most soft-spoken guys that you'll ever meet, and philosophical, and the psychology that he's got behind it. That's really the true secret ingredient to his coaching is kind of how he's able to get into the minds of his athletes. But he was a master at identifying who you were and then lining you up with certain people. Like he would always kind of compare me to Donnie. And for me, I was just brainwashed. I grew up in a really interesting family situation. And I won't get into that necessarily, but I really took to everything the guy said, that Ernie, I should say. And when he said, I'm like this guy, you want to be like this guy, I started watching this guy. When I was choosing a college, it was either I was either going to Wisconsin, where Donnie Pritzlaff went to school and won 2 national titles and became a world bronze medalist, or I was going to Hofstra, where Donnie was coaching at the time. It was that like that to me, and for nothing. I mean, I had met the guy once, twice. Who knows? Maybe he came back to the room and was recruiting someone else, or honestly, I can't even remember it. But I remember my trust in my coach in Ernie, and it was that the decision was that simple for me. So I think I think it's in my DNA. I think it was cultivated. But I think if there's a moment, things really didn't click, and I had some success, no doubt. I would say not until college did I realize I had this kind of epiphany moment, and I forget exactly what it was, but I came to this realization. I was like, it was too much about winning for me along the way. And I had this epiphany that, like, man, my father, he wasn't fortunate enough to travel. And, I went to Wisconsin. He lives in New Jersey. He wasn't able to see me every time. The internet and Flow Wrestling didn't exist. So he would fly out sometimes to see me, and maybe he came to Vegas and he had I'd have a bad performance, and then I'd sit there and pout like a child, immaturely. And the guy would fly across the country or across the world to see me. And then he'd be stuck in his room, or he'd have to go get dinner by himself because I'd be too big a baby to go out there and say, oh, thanks for coming. I appreciate you. So it was this epiphany moment I had that, like, man, my old man doesn't care. He cares that I win because he knows how much it mattered to me. And he never put an ounce of pressure on me. And I'm a guy that if you did that, I'd probably go the other way. I was always an upstream type of guy. So he knew the expectations and kind of like the expectations that I had for myself to perform. So I guess I had this moment of like, man, he doesn't give a rip. He loves me. That's it. And he loves me. And that's where things really clicked for me as far as like, man, I can go out and have dinner and tell him I love him and tell him I appreciate him traveling, across the country. And that doesn't make me less pissed or frustrated or competitive about the loss and the competition. It makes me more of a man and the ability to kind of be vulnerable and share and someone that's hurting also. My father was hurting and he was part of how I coach and I always want to exude confidence. My father always exuded confidence. I looked at him when he was there and he just gave me a look. He just nodded his head and he just put his fist up and I remember it every time I competed looking at him just for that. Um so that's where probably that would be the moment. Like, I don't know exactly which one it was, but somewhere in there that kind of shaped my philosophy about what this is really about and what parents are really about and where wrestling falls, because he ain't going anywhere. Whether I won NCAAs or I fell short or whether I fell, short and didn't place at all or won state or didn't win, like my man was there. My brother was there. And that's love. And love is significantly more important to me than wrestling.
Well, that's amazing. And so thank
Yes.
you for sharing that with us. That is absolutely amazing. And it's even better that you had that kind of moment as a student athlete or athlete student at the college level where there's so much other things that can take your thought process and all that. So I do appreciate you sharing that. I'm curious, Jimmy and I are from Point Pleasant, so growing up we always thought, or we thought we're at the shore. We're from the shore. So you go to camps, Team New Jersey, those sorts of things, and people are like, "Oh, I go to the shore. I have a shore house," and they're in different locations. Maybe down in Atlantic City or Brigantine or Cape May. What is the Jersey Shore for you,
Yeah, for me it
or
was
was it
Wildwood.
Wildwood?
We
Okay,
went to Wildwood every summer, and that was just a family thing we did with my father, um, and he's one of five, and nieces, nephews, cousins for us, whatever it was. Like we went down there with, I'm really fortunate. I've got both of my grandparents alive still. So that was something that we always did every summer was we got a house. And then when my grandfolks, when they retired, they ended up buying a home down in Wildwood. Um, so then we had that kind of home away from home where we would go. For us, it's 2 hours or whatever it is, and a lot of closer places. But for us, it's been Wildwood, and I don't think anything is better than the other. But for us, that was if I'm going down the shore, now my they're getting older and their health is waning a little bit, so they've moved back up to North Jersey. But still, if I'm going to go down to the beach, I'm going to go down to Wildwood.
all right.
Coach, before we get into the final four, is there anything that we haven't touched on the program that you want, potential recruits, anyone listening to this podcast to know?
Um, Listen, we're just like it's funny. I had a senior. We just had our banquet this past weekend, and it's funny as a coach, you don't realize sometimes maybe the word that Rich uses like impact. You don't realize sometimes that they've got limited things that they hear. Maybe sometimes you say things and they hear something else, right? Um, but like it always comes back to impact. But something I've talked about a lot in the past is like, there are builders and there are finishers. And I am very much a builder. I love building. I love taking the road less traveled and taking this job. This was not a highly sought after position when it opened up in 2016 or however long I've been here, that 8 years ago. But I built it and we're built on a really good foundation. And I'm really proud of that. So I had this one senior who just graduated, who it did, he wasn't a starter. He's very talented. He's very good. It wasn't in the cards, or there was something missing potentially. But he kind of touched on that, and I think that's what I would like people to recognize there's a lot more to this program. Like we are built good and we're set up for success moving forward. Um, and we continually, like what you'll see as we turn guys over in this program, we're going to fill the shoes with someone else. And you may have never heard of them, but after Vegas next year, when they place and now they're ranked top 25 in the country, you're going to be like, whoa, where are they at? But it makes us look, it kind of makes us look good as coaches because of our investment, our ability to develop. But more than anything, it's our ability to lay like a really solid foundation, um, and clear expectations of what we want these guys to do and what we want them to be about. Um, so I think that's cool. And I don't know exactly how that's a recruiting, tool per se, but yeah, I don't know. I think I love what we built. I'm so proud of what we built, and it is, it's starting to come to fruition a little bit more over the past 3 seasons. Um, but it's, yeah, I don't know. Got sidetracked a little bit there, but no, man, you guys covered a lot, and I've rambled a lot. So
No way, coach.
Amazing.
No rambling. I love having these conversations with coaches like yourself that get me fired up and make me wish I was in high school again. So appreciate the insight. Rich, you got anything for Zack?
I do. I have one last thing, Coach. You're in the Ivy League. There are three Jersey guys, head coaches in the Ivy League. There are also three edge guys in the Ivy League, head coaches. Round robin shark bait. Who's coming out on top?
me, definitely. There's four actually. I mean, if you count Matt Valenti was just named as the
Oh, that's right. You're
I
right.
think he'll be a co-head coach. So we got four Jersey guys, four edge guys, and Matt was a training partner of mine, but he's been out for 10 years. I feel like I got him. I got him. You know, now I got a lot of respect. Listen, Mike and I actually competed against each other in college, um, and we went back and forth. And Joe's just a little guy, although he's a little bit bigger now. So I feel like I got him there. I still roll pretty hard. So I know it's you say it in fun, and I am joking and like want to be serious about it, but uh, it'd be fun to get in a room. I think what it would end up being is we'd go a short amount of time and sit there shooting the breeze, probably about a guy like Ernie, or how the hell did we all end up here? Like what a what a small world, all of us within 3-4 years of each other, right? I mean, Matt and Joe are probably 2 years older than me. Mike might be a year or two. I don't know how many classes he is below me, but maybe a year below me, age wise. For us four to be in the positions we're at really is a testament to Ernie. And it's hard for me because I do these podcasts, and then like you said, it's like once you listen to one, it's like he comes up, and it seems like all I ever do is talk about Ernie. But I'm more than happy to do that because of the impact the guy had. And my son's name is Monaco. We call him by his middle name, but I named my son after Ernie because that's the type of guy um that I want my son to be like. Then when I think about someone like him, he epitomizes masculinity of what I want to be as a man. And that's not a macho guy. That's not I'm gonna beat up everybody and like what people nowadays would like toxic masculinity. He is vulnerable. He is emotional. He is sharp. He's a great husband. He's a tremendous father. Like that's the stuff. But all in that philosophical wrestling stuff, like who he is, his personality, his pillars of who he is internally all came out. Um, so I have a feeling like almost always, and Joe and I are close, and Mike and I are close, and I look forward to having Matt back in the fold a little bit more. He had been in an admin role, but to me, it's like we switched to just an Ivy League tournament. So
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty fun thing. We remove 11 other teams and it's just six of us. So we kind of got everyone outnumbered in that sense. And I have a feeling whether we got in there and wrestled or whether we were out eating dinner, a lot of things are gonna probably come back to our roots, and our roots all probably kind of stem from being in Kenilworth or um, you know that edge room wherever it was at the time.
Jim, I think
But
we
I'll
just
win.
got our idea for our doc.
With the Ivy League coaches?
The Ivy League coaches connection to the Edge and Ernie.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's something there. Curious, is how many locations are there for the Edge now? Is there two or just the one?
There's technically two, but there's really only one. Ernie only coaches at the one. The one was kind of a satellite. Dave Esposito moved to Hoboken, and there was an opportunity to have a facility there. Um, in which case they wanted, the builders and the backers behind it. They wanted him to kind of start a club to help out in the community and help out, I want to say potentially with their children, and their development and growth in the sport of wrestling. And I think out of respect, Dave, and again, I haven't actually spoken about this with Dave specifically, so this could be false, but I almost think like Dave and I have a lot of similarities in our road traveled and our relationship specifically with Ernie. Um, so maybe it's me projecting my own thoughts. I could never start a club in the state of New Jersey unless if it was called Edge, or a satellite campus of that, because I would never want to take away, or even have the perception of taking away business from Ernie, because that's the esteem I hold him in. So there's that location in Hoboken, and that's what we use as our RTC location. Our guys move off campus, but otherwise, right now there's really just the one.
Anything else, Richard? Can we get in the final four?
Real quick, Coach, how close are you to your fighting weight these days?
Yeah, that's an embarrassing answer I have to give you. I weighed 144 and a half pounds the other day, in the middle of a workout. And I competed at 41, and I was a lot thicker and a lot stronger. And I'm just like embarrassed to say, so I feel bad for my wife. She's got to listen to me like I'm a teenager, fighting with my identity. If I'm outside of like 148 to 152, I'm miserable. If I'm in that range, I'm okay. But if I ever get above 52, I'm like, man, I gotta start hitting the pavement and run again. If I'm too light, I'm a little baby. I'm a 25 pounder. So I'm uncomfortably close to my competition weight.
All right, respect.
Coach, I feel you with that. I am the same way. I actually have to stay away from the scale, even though I'm within a pound or two just by looking at myself in the mirror. I can tell, but I'm the same way. Give or take a pound or two, one way or the other. It's a bad day. So I feel you.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Some in this sport, it's funny. Some guys leave, especially lightweights, obviously, and they kind of like the lightweights maybe have a tendency to sometimes like blow up and get big, but I think a lot of people end up withering away, So I train a lot still, and I work out and I love wrestling. I'm still really passionate about being involved as I can until the wheels fall off with my guys. But I don't lift nearly as much. I'll do like some Metcons or CrossFit things. I like running quite a bit. I just had my third kid, so I'm a little distracted from hitting the pavement the way I would like to. But that's kind of a stress reliever for me. And I think, the increased miles with not eating properly, like bulking up and lifting I'm just not quite as strong as I once was. So, but I think most people do that. Like they're heavier because they're lifting and they're carrying muscle, and muscle weighs more than fat, and they stop lifting and their appetites change, their diets, everything, and they kind of get smaller. So it's typically one or the other, though. You don't really see the middle ground.
Yeah.
I always say to Rich, there's two types of wrestlers, either the guys that balloon up and never work out, or then the guys that are just obsessed and that's all they worry about is working out and being in fighting shape.
Yeah. The study there would be to kind of go and dig deeper. What causes that, right? You see a lot of the damaged guys, and damaged sounds bad. They're not damaged, but whether it was too much weight cutting or there's some type of trauma, to how their careers ended that probably caused them to go the other way. Meanwhile, it's like I'm proud. I talk about this with my team. Like, I'm proud of what I accomplished. I'm also really proud of what I didn't accomplish because I know what I put into it. And it's a progression. And had I known what I knew my senior year of college and were able to implement it my freshman year, yeah, maybe I'm a 4-time All-American. That wasn't it, but I'm proud of kind of the incremental steps in the progress, and being a student. But it's like I don't live with regret. I don't live with doubt of who I was and who I wasn't. I'm proud of who I'm not. I'm proud of who I am. And I think more often than not, what the layman would consider a high achiever, part of why they're a high achiever is because of that kind of a similar mindset. And then that mindset is a lifelong thing. So they will continue to work out. They will continue to value training and kind of what that does for their life. So like I could never not work out. I could never, Donnie Pritzlaff could never not work out. So that to me would be a very interesting study, is to kind of dig deeper into those guys that maybe did blow up, and what are the common links there.
Yeah, and I'd even be curious to see maybe like the physiological damage of cutting weight and how that, maybe impacts like, thyroid or metabolism and
Yeah,
sometimes
that's that's a really good point as well. I think that's where, listen, there's a lot of changes in wrestling. There seems to always be a lot of changing. One of the best things, and we can gripe about it, or people will gripe about it, but them regulating the weigh-ins, and now it was a 1 hour up until this year. Now everything's a 2 hour weigh-in. It has done the job. It's gotten away from the really, or largely gotten away from the drastic, incredibly unhealthy weight cutting that did exist in the late 90s, or prior to that, and then early 2000s, where a couple kids unfortunately passed away. And for that, the sport is in a way healthier place. So I'd say, the other way to break it down would be like whenever those rule changes went into effect, like previous or like pre that and post, whenever that date was.
Yeah, I'm curious too if that around that time is when people started having fun with it too.
Yeah. Yeah. There's not a lot of sports like wrestling where it's like most people, you play baseball, you love baseball. There's no one that played baseball that doesn't love baseball or football or basketball. Wrestling's not that way, like there's a lot of people, I'll be on the train or I'll be traveling or someone will see my ear and they'll think I'm Volkanovski or something like that. And they'll start a conversation with me and they're like, oh, I wrestled in high school. Oh, I hated it. I hated it. It was terrible. I hated the cutting weight. And again, that's like it's a trauma that's built. So it's unique how much that plays a role in it, but it definitely makes a lot of sense that the weight cut, like on top of then the mano a mano and potential to lose, and there's a lot of reflection that you have to have in this sport that calluses you, and that you don't necessarily have to have in other sports, and that's why it's the best sport, but it's also why it's not the sport for everyone. But somehow at an earlier level, to do more of eliminating weight cut would probably be the most beneficial thing we can do for the longevity of our sport. Because I do think most people have a negative connotation with wrestling when they leave it, primarily because of that. Because I do believe the people in wrestling that end up going and giving back to wrestling are doing it with very pure intentions, 99% of them. And it's not, so I refuse to think it's like they had a bad coach that made it unfun, although that could be the case. I think it's probably more linked to the weight loss.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would have. Sorry, Rich.
Jim, go ahead.
I'd have to agree with you. And, as a kid, he's like, oh, they're trying to eliminate weight cutting. But it's like, yeah, they're putting those rules there to protect you from yourself. You're so young and dumb. You don't understand it right now. But they're putting these rules in place to protect you from yourself. And actually, you're going to do better if you wrestle at your normal weight. But when you're a kid, you can't comprehend those things.
Yeah. Well, you can't, but your parents can't either. That's the sickest part, like to me. And that sounds bad, and that can be perceived in a lot of different ways. And that probably doesn't help me recruiting, but the parents are pretty misguided. And I think now with NIL, and I think it's only made it worse, is, we got to get the scholarship and we got to get paid. So we will do anything to get that ticket, because it's more of a life changer than just getting a scholarship now. It could impact your whole family. Maybe not as much in wrestling, but certainly in other sports.
Something to be said about an Ivy League degree that can impact your whole family too, though.
I agree. That's why I think, these Ivy League jobs are, they're value, like, they're some of the best jobs.
All right, Coach. Final four. First one I got for you. Are you a coffee drinker?
Absolutely.
How do you brew your coffee? How do you take it?
I have an espresso machine at home, so I make like an Americano every morning. My kids get up at, I don't know, 5:30 to 6:30, somewhere in there, and that's the first thing getting turned on is my espresso machine.
Just
And
straight
then, sorry,
espresso?
how I take it, I take it. No, I'll put like water in it. So I have
An Americano, that's right, yeah.
yeah, I make like an Americano. I'll put like, water and then 3 shots, and um call it from there. I put sugar in it though. I don't do milk, but a little bit of sugar.
Okay. Coach, do you have any daily practices or rituals that you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of Zack Tanelli?
Oh man, that's a that's an awesome question. Do I? I wish I had a better answer for you. I wouldn't I wouldn't say it's like one specific thing. Family is like really, really important to me. And I my wife is an absolute soldier, and she is the caregiver primarily for our children. I take the morning shift, and I love the morning shift. I'm a morning person anyway. I don't really wake up groggy. Um, I love spending time with my kids in the morning, and they're watching a show, and I'm sitting there looking at Twitter, and then I'll find myself. It's actually easier for me to put my phone down and like kind of soak it up a little bit more in the morning when they're best behaved. They're at their best there, so it makes it easier for me. Um, right now, that's probably where it is. I think there's phases of life, and in the phase of life I'm at, that's it. I think previously it was I gotta run. I would get up at 5 or 6, or whenever I could afford to, and just get some miles in, and you know feel good about where I was at and doing something before everyone else. But right now it's family time and being with my kids.
All right.
Amen.
What are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
I have two really good books that are on my list that I'm anxious to get, but have not purchased them yet. Uh, I'm a big music guy. I live probably primarily in the 90s, and like, rock grunge. Uh, that said, right now I'm listening to kind of a funk, like a little bit of funky, out of my realm a little bit, but She Wants Revenge. If I look over at my other screen, that's what's on Spotify right now. So they got some funky stuff. They're a little bit, little, I don't want to say dark. They're a little strange though. Strange for the normal listener. I have a pretty eclectic taste in music, and that was something that I inherited from my father, and that was my whole childhood. I've seen so many concerts, and growing up in this area, how accessible it is, and um, my whole childhood was me, my twin brother, and my sister going to see every band under the sun.
You remember your first concert?
The Cranberries, believe it or not, were my first concert.
It's a goodie.
All right. Nice.
So we had to break in a little bit slow, a little bit softer, but I like, it was a good show. I
Thank you.
remember it well.
Right on. Last one we have for you, Coach. Do you have a guilty pleasure or guilty pleasures? It could be food, maybe you're a craft beer or whiskey guy? Maybe you're a closet Swiftie.
Yeah, I'm not a closet Swiftie. I am not a pop music fan of all like I have an eclectic taste. I would dip further into older music than and even rap from the 90s. I don't like new rap or mumble, whatever they call it, and I don't like pop music. I saw Taylor Swift at something and I asked my wife who that was, and she looked at me like I had six heads. Like I am so involved and on top of certain things and so far removed from others. So I don't give two rips about pop culture and pop music. Um I have a sweet tooth, I would say. Um I wouldn't say I'm a yeah, that's it. I mean, that would be a guilty pleasure. I like chocolate. Anything like chocolate peanut butter, man, I can kind of get behind.
All right, all right. And then back to our original question: Are you going a bagel or a hard roll with your Taylor ham and cheese?
Everything bagel
All
every
right,
time,
let's go.
whether it's whole wheat or egg. Oh, you know what I'll do now is this. It's funny. Where I live, I'll still drive to kind of where I grew up because it's still one of the better bagels. And I'm not being biased. I just really think that it's one of the better bagels in New Jersey. They have a jalapeno everything bagel, and that's
Ooh,
a little bit of a different kick, that I like. I'll go cheddar though a lot. Cheddar
those are
on it
good too.
instead of American cheese. So, but no roll, no roll for me. That's a South Jersey thing.
Okay.
So when
Okay.
in Rome, I'll do it. If that's if someone's
Only a
getting it for
Wildwood.
me, only in Wildwood. They don't have good bagels down there.
It's the salt water.
Shit, too salty.
Coach, thank you so much for your time. Love having these conversations with college coaches, especially the Jersey guys. Gives us more to look forward to during the season, more teams to root for. So really appreciate the time and really look forward to watching you guys next couple seasons.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, man. This has been an awesome conversation. And again, I apologize that unexpected last night. I'm glad we were able to turn around so quick and get here, get back on track only a couple hours later. But I appreciate you guys. This was awesome and some good stories that I haven't thought about in a long time. So appreciate you.
Yeah, Coach. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And next time you're talking to Dave, let him know Rich Airey still has trauma from getting pinned by a freshman in the super regions.
Listen, I think in time you recognize some things, I think when you see what he went on to do, it probably makes it, I would hope it softens it a little bit.
Oh yeah, big time. When he was in the
But
NCAA
it's
finals.
yeah, that's a good
Absolutely.
story for you to have. I look back on it and it's like, you guys know in Jersey, I'm sorry, I know we're trying to cut it, but it's like
Oh, you're good.
I look back on it and people are like, how many times did you win state? And I'm like, I never won state, and you don't realize it's like so much of it is circumstantial. You don't know if you like, how do you know that Dave Esposito, you lost to some pud freshman, but you won't know that he's actually pretty damn good, for another 15 years, another 10 years, right? So like I look back on it and man, I lost to some guys that ended up being pretty good. I lost to a kid that was in the senior nationals finals when that was the only tournament. I lost to a guy that was a Division I All-American. I lost to another guy that was a two-time All-American and NCAA finalist. So it's like it's so relative, and I think only having that perspective, like you don't gain that perspective until later on. Um, Especially if you do move on to college and you probably become more of that. And Mike Gray actually said something, and he actually never said this to me, so I apologize if I'm sharing this and I shouldn't be, but he was the first four-time New Jersey state champion, and that's unbelievable. Um, and he went on and he had a really nice college career. But he had told a close friend of ours that we share that he would trade them all to be an NCAA champion. And of course he would, and everyone would. The nine-time rec state champion would trade all of them to be the one-time high school state champion, and the four-time high school state champion would trade them all for the other side of it. So that's I think it's just perspective. You don't really know. Um, Sorry about that. You just don't really know in the moment what's going on. It's like pretty I don't know, it's like a deep thought, I guess, but just you don't know what you don't know at the time.
Perspective
It's
and gratitude.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and now that you bring it up, one of the questions that I had, and I didn't ask because you answered it in one of the other questions, but it was like, what would you tell yourself, after you lost to Dan Valmont in the state semis? And it's your dad's still gonna love you, your brother's still gonna love you, life's gonna go on, and you're gonna be fine for it. So I really appreciate the insight and just knowing, hey man, you're still going to be a good person regardless if you're a state champ or not, and there's still opportunity to grow and be a better person.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess to actually answer that question, I would have told myself to, I was actually pretty good with hard coaching. And I would have kind of gotten on me, not about losing the match, but about like, listen, man, this is it. Like you gotta, like, this is what it's about now. Like you got punched in the mouth, and now is how you respond is everything. And I was proud of that. And it was a combination of Ernie and Dave that said something like that. And I will never forget, Rich, it's like it's so funny. I was in a, you know, I hadn't gotten it done in college. And I had a good senior year, and I was I was ranked number one in the country and had beaten kind of everyone at the weight that could win it, right? But I lost. I got upset early. Our whole bracket blew up, and it was a text. It wasn't a call. It wasn't anything, but it actually was Dave Esposito that sent me a text, and it got me right. It wasn't Donnie, my coach. It wasn't anything. It was Dave Esposito sent me a text, and um, kind of that same thing. Like if you're, if you're the best guy, then you can take third. If you, it was something of those lines, and I wish I remembered it, but I will never forget who it was from and the context of what he was getting at. But it's like, if you're the best guy, then you could take third, and the toughest guys take third. And I had to do it once, and he did. He came back for third, and I came up. I took fourth, but it's like it. The mission was accomplished. The message was received, and it got me. And it got me right because I was devastated, and I had a long road back. I lost in the second round, and I think I had to win 5 matches to go for third, or 6 matches or something like that. Um, but I would have just told myself to stop being a baby, And if I tried to talk back, which I was very keen on doing, because I knew everything when I was 17, I would have just not had it. So I don't know, but again, perspective, time.
Amen. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for the insight. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much.
Yes, is awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Yeah. Good luck next season, coach, and we'll be